Rock solid. These words can be used to describe myself when I am playing Wisp, but they can also be used to describe a rock solid frame. I am of course talking about Atlas. Many months ago, I had a build and I actually occasionally, very rarely, played Atlas. With the pseudo-exalted weapons rework, he has gotten much stronger than I expected. I would dare to say he is overpowered, so much that it actually negatively affects his performance. Atlas's passive ability has two effects. First one can be described as primed sure-footed from a wish. Second effect is more interesting because it makes Atlas hard to uninstall. Atlas can petrify enemies with his abilities. When these enemies are destroyed, they drop rubble. Picking up this rubble will heal Atlas if he is missing health, or it will give him up to 1500 armor, which decays over time. To be at his best survival chances, Atlas has to continuously channel his inner Medusa and beat the hell out of stoned enemies. Atlas's first ability is a simple punch. This doesn't sound very powerful, but Atlas's fists are literal rocks. As you can imagine, getting hit with a rock isn't enjoyable. Getting a hit with a rock powered by Murderer's Intent is significantly worse. Atlas can chain this punch up to 3 times. Each successive combo attack will cost less energy and it will deal damage in wider area. While land sliding, Atlas is also invulnerable. This ability allows you to cosplay as One Punch Man because it is strong enough it can delete a lot of enemies in a single hit. The damage of this ability is affected by the mods you put on Atlas's pseudo-exalted weapon, which is basically his fists. I never thought fisting could be deadly until now. Second ability creates a simple wall. This wall will absorb damage and it will provide cover. It will also deal area of effect damage when hit by enemies. Recasting this ability will turn the wall into a ball that deals damage. This ability just isn't good. I tried to make it work with range mods and its augment, but this ability just isn't there yet. It provides some protection and it does fit with Atlas, but overall it's not really useful. Third ability will turn enemies into stone. If you ever wanted to stone a bunch of people, now you can. This is the simplest way to get rubble and it should be used frequently to sustain Atlas's health and gain extra armor. Petrified enemies also take 50% more damage. This ability is good at crowd control, but keep in mind it is affected by Atlas's look angle. To simplify, if Atlas isn't looking directly at the enemies, they won't be petrified. Fisting enemies is entertaining, but you know what is even better? Fisting enemies with friends. Atlas's last ability will summon 2 cheap versions of Atlas that will immediately start fisting enemies. If you are close enough, summoning rumblers will petrify nearby enemies. When these rumblers are destroyed, they will drop rubble for Atlas. If you really like these guys, you can keep them alive by healing them with Petrify, or if you don't like them, you can recast the ability to get rid of them. Atlas is a warframe that I would definitely recommend to new players. He has good self-sustain and surprisingly, even with beginner level mods, he can do a lot of damage in the endgame content. His blueprints can be acquired through the Jorda's Precept quest, even though this quest has nothing to do with Atlas. If you don't want to play this quest, you can also get his blueprints through Duviris circuit rewards. This is the setup I would suggest to baby Tenno. One mod that you should absolutely get is Rubble Heap. This is a mod I would tell everyone to use on Atlas because once you surpass 1400 armor, Land Slide deals more damage and costs 0 energy. I also have to show you the build for Atlas's Exalted Weapon. As you can see, it is pure straightforward damage. It doesn't get simpler than this. Unlike other melee weapons, Landslide doesn't have a lot of stats, so I think it is best to just roll with damage. Because a lot of damage comes from the mods on his fists, I was curious to try this beginner build on some endgame level content, and I must say, even with this beginner setup, Atlas does quite well. One thing I had on my mind as I was experimenting with Atlas is, if I punch someone, they will probably disappear. If I punch someone and they somehow survive, I can punch them again. All this led me to this build. I would say this is not what you would expect. I like fisting enemies with Atlas, and since most of the damage comes from his Exalted mod setup, I went with ability range. The only strength mod I have is Precision Intensify. I replaced the last ability with Helmet, and this is the only reason for this mod. Even though I am quite happy with range build, I also made some changes and have a build with more ability strength. Honestly, both builds are pretty solid, and I just included this strength one in case some of you might like it more. One thing that I want to mention but don't want to use are Umbral mods. These mods are perfect for Atlas. I personally don't like them because even though I can, I don't like polarizing slots for Umbral polarity. If you really want to go all in on Atlas, you can replace Vitality, Strength and the Drift mods with Umbral ones. As for the Steel Pad endgame Exalted Weapon build, I didn't change my mind. I went with full damage just like in the beginner build, except I added more. You can add Condition Overload if you are using something like Diriga or a Status Primer weapon. This will give you more damage, but I personally think it's not necessary because you can always punch again. When it comes to Archon Shards, my choice is straightforward: melee critical damage. If you don't have purple shards, go with red ones. If you want to boost his performance with Helmet, there are a few solid options: Roar, Eclipse or Wrathful Advance. In the end, I decided to go with Wisp's Breach Surge. I won't spend too much time explaining this ability, but the important thing is, whenever enemies meet Jesus or they take damage, they release these sparks that seek out and damage other enemies. To be fair, I'm not getting a lot from this ability because, unless they have boss status, barely anyone survives to get hit with the sparks. But since I have lots of range and that Precision Intensify mod, this gives me extra damage against those harder to kill enemies. I'm not surprised by Atlas. He was strong even before the pseudo exalted rework, but he's also a little bit boring. One thing that I am quite certain is that as long as you have good mods on his fists, the mods you use on him aren't set in stone. You can go for a lot of different combinations and he will always have damage, and due to his passive armor and heal, he will be able to take a lot of hits. Enjoy the rest of your life and let me know what do you think about this.